What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So as you can tell by the title of this video, yes, it is true. I had to call the police yesterday, and I'm going to get to that in just a second, but it all started off, I was in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I was going to Pumping Station Park to film the reverse wired P50 at that park for the second time. Unfortunately, it did not go off. I was there for like 15 minutes after noon, and it did not go off once. I did hear another P50 in the background. I believe it was the one at the Milwaukee County Court, but it went off 22 minutes after 12, and it only went off in alert. And I think that was one out of 7 tornado sirens that went off that day. So yeah, I should have gone to either Whitefish Bay or the hurricane, because pretty much everybody was at the hurricane, and I decided to go and out on a limb and film a reverse wired P50 that I've already filmed. This time I wanted to get a better shot since I now have a working tripod. That did not go to plan whatsoever. But yeah, it was pretty much the same story with the test as June, except worse because they tested late and they were having more troubles than ever with the CompUlert, they being the Milwaukee County Emergency Management Agency. So yeah, as you remember, I was with Mitchell, Holly, Alex, and Thomas at the hurricane in June of 2021, and it only went off an alert because it tested like 7 or 8 minutes late. I don't remember, but it was pretty late, but not as late as yesterday's test, because that was 22 minutes late, and I know that because I heard the P50 from the Milwaukee County Court from where I was just walking back to the car, because the area surrounding Pumping Station Park was blocked off by road construction, so I couldn't park on the road I usually park on when I go there, because it was restricted to locals who pretty much lived there. But anyway, on to why I had to call the police. There was this homeless man in the park. He approached me and asked me if I was a photographer. And at first, when I saw him walking, I was like, oh boy, what has he got to say? And I told him, nope, I'm just here to film the tornado siren. And then he was wondering if there was going to be a tornado, and I said, no, it's just a test. So then he talks about how his life is miserable. And I told him at some point, I think maybe 2 times actually, that I feel really bad for him. He has a granddaughter with leukemia. Now, his granddaughter was not with him at the time, but I can only imagine how stressful that is, dealing with a child or grandchild who has cancer, because cancer really is a bitch. Sorry for the language, but you know, I lost one of my best friends to cancer. If you guys remember that live stream from 3 years ago, her name was Haley. She was only 18 when she passed away. She would be 21 now if she were still alive. But back on topic. So he also told me at some point in our conversation that he contemplated suicide the day prior, so 2 days ago, before we had even met and talked in the park. And he said he wanted to do it by jumping into a lake, and he told me he doesn't know how to swim. Oh my God. I told him that suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And I'll be honest with you guys, when I was 16, I was having some suicidal thoughts as well, because I saw a social media post saying that a girl I really liked got her first kiss, and so I made some poor choices, and one of my friends reached out to me because she was concerned, and she ended up calling the police, and they came to my house and had a chat with me. So, yep, I definitely learned my lesson there. It's no joke, and that's why I did what my friend did for me 7 years ago with this homeless man. So anyway, I'm going to get to that because, let's see, we talked about the granddaughter and the fact that she had leukemia, or she was battling it, I should say. I told him that I recently lost my grandmother. I'm going to talk about that in another video. It was a week ago today that I lost my grandmother on my mom's side. I'm still emotionally recovering from that. I don't know if I'll be able to fully recover, but more on that in another video. So he tells me that. I tell him suicide's a permanent solution to a temporary problem and it's never worth it. It does not get through to him because at some point he talked about how he's talked to so many people to see if they could help him financially, and they couldn't. And then he asked me for money, and I told him as much as I would like to help him, I don't have any cash on me right now, which was true because I usually don't carry cash on me. It's just been a habit I've had since the pandemic started, because I wanted to stop the spread of the coronavirus in whatever way I could. And part of that was by not carrying cash. I know that sounds weird, but that was just what people did. At least that's what we did anyway in my family. But on to the next point. He then did not take that lightly. He wasn't overly angry, but he was angry with the fact that he just couldn't get help from anyone. I felt really bad for him. And then at some point he said, and I'm done talking, and then he walked in the direction of a porta potty that was in the park. And this was about 5 minutes before Milwaukee County was supposed to test the tornado sirens. But 15 minutes afterwards, and I know this because I kept glancing back at the porta potty to see if he would come back out, he did not come back out. So he had been in there for over 20 minutes. And so that's when I knew something fishy was up and that he might have been trying to suffocate himself through the means of heat exhaustion or heat stroke. Heat from the porta potty, because it was a hot day that day. It was 80 degrees. Not the hottest day, but hot enough to where if you go into some remote area that's enclosed, it's going to be hot and it's not going to be pleasant. So I don't know what was up with him other than the fact that he just wasn't having a good time with his situation. But I felt really bad. So I left the park and then I called my mom and explained the situation to her and asked her if I should call the police because I'm concerned about this guy. So then she gives me the advice to drive away to avoid any and all confrontation, because obviously confrontation's not what I want. I want to help the guy because I'm concerned. So I go to some random parking lot, call 911, explain the situation to the dispatcher, and that I'm concerned and I don't want this man to die because of his actions. So then we talked for a bit, and then I had to give the exact location, the intersection where that park was near, because apparently they weren't able to find Pumping Station Playfield on the GPS or the map or whatever the dispatchers use to dispatch emergency personnel to an emergency. But yeah, it ended up with an officer going to the scene. And funny enough, when I called 911, I was placed on hold for 90 seconds and it said, "You've reached 911. Do not hang up." So it was in a queue of emergency calls because I guess a lot of people had emergencies at that given time. I've never had that happen to me before, but I've only ever heard of it happening. So you can take it from me, someone who's had to report a serious emergency, that yes, sometimes 911 can be so tied up that you might be on hold. And I know that it would be tough to be in that situation, but you just have to be patient, be as patient as possible, be ready to explain to whatever dispatcher that picks up what's going on. So, officer was dispatched, and like I was saying, as I was on hold, there was a police officer who was turning left near the parking lot I was in, but they weren't turning to talk to me. So I'm guessing that officer was nearby and was dispatched to the park. I don't know what happened after that, because obviously I left the park and then I went home after that because, well, I had nothing else to do. But yeah, that was just a really unfortunate encounter, but I'm glad I did go despite a failed test, because I may have just saved somebody's life. And I don't know about you guys, but sometimes people just don't think about other people like that, and it's an ethical decision one would have to make. I just personally don't think twice with these kinds of things. Like, if someone's life is in danger, even by themselves, I'm going to call for help, because they need help more than anyone. That's pretty much all I have for this story. Let me know what you guys thought and if you've had any similar encounters, but until next time, peace.